What is up, guys? Welcome back to OverTakes. This is Misfit, and today we're going to be talking about Blizzconline. All right, we're going to talk about everything's been wrapped up, of course. I'm going to give you my thoughts on Overwatch 2, the stuff they announced about the Overwatch League, and we're not going to talk too much about the other games, but, there was some good hype around a couple of the other ones. But we're just going to focus on Overwatch and Overwatch League, mostly the Overwatch League stuff, because that's what we do on this channel. But I'm going to talk about Overwatch 2 as well a little bit, give you my thoughts, and like I said. But before I get into that, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me, everybody out there on YouTube. Thank you very much for all the likes, all the subscribes, all the support that you've been giving me. It's greatly appreciated. If you're new, thank you very much for joining. If you could hit the like button, the subscribe button, and hit that alert bell, that'd be greatly appreciated. I do Overwatch League content once or twice a week in the off season, and then I ramp it up during the regular season. When the season's in full swing, we got matches and tournaments and news and all kinds of other stuff going on. I amp it up a little bit more there. We talk a few times a week. But let's get into this, shall we? Okay, so let's talk about BlizzConline. All right, it happened on Friday and Saturday, all online. We had the usual types of things from Blizzard doing, the opening ceremonies and, cosplay and all that kind of stuff, which are very fun. Opening ceremonies, though, let's touch on that really quick. Yeah, so watching that, I got a little concerned, and I'm sure some of you are not concerned, but I was like, where the Overwatch news at? That kind of stuff, because, they're going through the games and like, oh, we got this with Hearthstone, let's hit on Warcraft and talk about Diablo and all this stuff, and they literally just ghosted Overwatch. I believe Cuss is the person that said, what are we, Heroes of the Storm now? Which is unfortunate. I love that game, but it felt like it because there was no mention of Overwatch, like it didn't exist. That was a little concerning. I'm like, all right, so they're doing something really big then. We move forward out of that whole thing. The panel, or, the what's next, whatever you want to call it, the behind the scenes of Overwatch 2, there was a lot of stuff in there about the game, and it provided a lot of information that we didn't have before, and some things that it looked impressive and immersive, and all of the things. It looked so much better than it did at BlizzCon 2019. But the one critique I have is they could have told us some of this stuff even last June and said, hey, look, some of the stuff they told us in this behind the scenes look. The one thing I really wish they had said last year at some point would be the when they were talking about the gameplay and the aftermath of BlizzCon 2019, saying that they really didn't like what they had going there, and they kind of decided to scrap it and start over. Paraphrasing here, of course, but I really wish they had said something like that last year, because they keep saying things like Jeff keeps saying, we have to manage our expectations. I would have easily managed my expectations if they said the things that they had said, but most of them being, we played the modes, we tried them out, and the replayability and the fun factor and all that stuff was kind of there, but it really wasn't what we wanted it to be. I would have accepted that, and I wouldn't have been on this whole thing. Well, over what's going to be going on in 2021, we're going to be playing Overwatch 2. All that kind of stuff that everyone's been saying, and I've been part of that too. Especially on the Overwatch League side, saying, well, they're probably going to do this and that, and they're starting in April because, they got a beta, and they're going to do this, and then they're going to launch the game in April. That was my expectation, because I was told to manage my expectations more or less in a way, like we're not going to talk until the next BlizzCon, but when you scrap a whole idea and you start over to be like, hey, maybe they didn't want the publicity of that, maybe they didn't want people to think that, that this whole project's going awry, I don't know, but I just wish they had said something earlier. But all of the gameplay and like the things like talent trees and the PvE side was fantastic. I am so ready to play that. We'll get into that more for sure. I mean, I'm working on some other things where, we'll have some in-depth gameplay on that, and I will be talking about builds and all that fun stuff that's going to go around this game. That's going to be something I'm going to announce in the future, teasing something. But I'm working on some stuff. some other stuff outside of Overwatch League that I'm going to definitely include Overwatch 2 in, obviously, and the PvE and the PvP side, which is just going to be comical for you guys to watch me play that. But onto the PvP, which is important to what our conversation is about on this channel, which is the Overwatch League. We didn't get much. I mean, there was a lot of shots and a lot of things that they showed of the PvP, the passives and some of the other stuff. The fact that they're going to get rid of 2CP, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in a second. But the one thing that I picked up on, and I think everybody picked up on that watched it, was it looked 5v5 to me. One tank. Anytime they showed a shot, there was one tank. I know they were featuring a lot of the tank gameplay, especially with Reinhardt, but it did not seem like that there was a tank and a second tank, whether it's off tank, two main tanks, whatever. I never saw that scenario when I was watching it. But if you guys saw something that was different, that had two tanks in it, then by all means comment down below, because I didn't see it. But we didn't get too much of the PvP conversation going, and a lot of people are freaking out. All of the people that are high-level players and everything are saying they don't care about PvP, they're abandoning the game, and all this stuff. I'm gonna go on the other side of that, maybe somewhere in the middle. But this is my theory about how they've been working this whole thing out and what they've been telling us. I don't think they have a complete plan yet for PvP. They don't have all of their ducks in a row. They haven't come up with a succinct plan to change and revolutionize it like they say they're going to do. I don't think it's all ready yet, especially if we're adding a bunch of new heroes in, new maps in, which we got a couple of glimpses at Rome and New York, which looked fantastic. I love the idea that they brought both of those cities into this. And then we got a kind of a glimpse at India as well. It looked like they were playing a lot off of the Symmetra comic. That one, I don't know where that one's going to fall in what realm, if it's just going to be a PvE map or a PvP map, but like in a deathmatch scenario thing. We could go on and on about that stuff for days, because I love maps. I love all of the creativity that goes on in that stuff. But anyway, back to my thoughts on PvP. I don't think that they have it complete yet. And you guys are Blizzard fans. You know how they are. And you know how Team 4 is right now. They don't like talking about stuff when it's not done. Or close to done. Or in any stretch of the imagination, something that they could show a great deal of content, what you're going to be getting, what we're going to be seeing, all that kind of stuff. That I just have that feel that they want to show it to us when they're ready. And it goes along their process for the whole last year and a half. They didn't want to show us anything last year because, well, first off, they said that. But that being aside, we had the pandemic. They scrapped the whole idea of the PvP the way it was working. If you looked at the way it looked today compared to the way it looked in 2019, it's totally different. I guess my point is that I'm not worried about the PvP side after seeing the PvE side. I'm going into this positive. Am I disappointed that it's not here? Yes, especially after I saw all that stuff. And, you saw Sojourn's kit and all that crap. It just, I love the fact that they bring the weaponry from other games that I cut my teeth on playing competitively, like being like Quake or Unreal Tournament, like railguns and sniper rifles and, just that kind of stuff. I was never much on the Halo or Call of Duty or any of those games, but when you're bringing in wacky, weird fucking guns and stuff like that and abilities and different things, I'm all about that. If they can just get a goop gun in here, that would be great. Hopefully one of the new heroes has it. But anyway, back to the point. PvP is not done yet. I can guarantee it. I think when they finally get it set as to what direction they're going with that, they're going to let us know. And it's going to blow everybody's mind like the PvE. The one thing that has been said in the IGN interview with Jeff after BlizzCon and all that, because they didn't touch on PvP or any of that stuff, was the whole 2CP thing. He did kind of say it in the video, but I'm not a fan of that, and not many people are. It is strategic from that side. Yeah, should it go? I don't know if it should go or not, but you know what? if you have come up with, in the last 5 years, we have not gotten a game mode. If you have come up with something better than that mode, which is infuriating, and most tilting that I've had when I play, not from myself, but on teams that, when you're playing in a competitive match, that people get tilted and start screaming at each other on the mics and throwing and all this stupid shit. It's generally on a 2CP map. Also, it doesn't work in quick play. I love playing quick play. I'm not as much on the competitive. I never have been. I like going in there. I'm not a hardcore competitive guy. I like to go in, have fun, and just play around. I like it when I get into the serious mode of, I want to play with guys that are playing comps and not playing Junkrat, Torbjorn, Lucio, or something like that. Stupid shit that happens in quick play. I hate getting 2CP maps. It just ruins your day. Aesthetically, I like the maps. I like Anubis looks great. Even Paris and Horizon Lunar Colony, they all are aesthetically pleasing, and they'll repurpose those maps into something. They'll be in some mode, whether it's like they're saying arcade modes, but there's going to be hero missions for that stuff in PvE. You'll never not see Hanamura again. I mean, the way they worked the last map that they put in for Deathmatch and Hanamura, I assume there's a way that they could connect those two together and use those in conjunction with each other for a full-fledged map for PvP. That's just my theory on that. I know that they're going to come up with something great, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the future. They said they're going to talk a lot more, so I think they're starting to get their ducks in a row. We're not going to see it till next year, which is unfortunate. But, the prospects of what's to come. And then there are other Easter eggs and things like that people have been digging and finding. People have found glimpses of what looks to be the Junker Queen. Also, if you watch a couple of other videos, a lot of guys have put out since then, mostly about Overwatch itself, not really about the league, but there are things like, one of the things that I myself have been a proponent of since kind of day one of Overwatch is the guild system. I just think that is just something that's going to be great for PvE, but also for PvP, because you could team up with your friends and play with people who you like to play with. Rarely any tilting on your team. Rarely any throwing if you're group throwing. That's a whole different animal we're not going to get into. But you want to play the game. You know how each other play. It raises the level of the gameplay, and it's prestige-y stuff too. It's kind of like your group of guys is better than the other group. It adds to the fun of playing PvP. I'm not a fan of solo queue. They want to make this solo queue heavy, and I get that vibe a little bit, but I also get the vibe that there might be another tree of team ladder, I guess, like a clan ladder, a team ladder, or whatever you want to call it thing. I think that's something that could be great for the future. And this also provides something for the Overwatch League. This is kind of where I'm kind of stepping into this with the clans again and the guilds, is that you get groups of guys playing together. You can see their skill levels. You can see how they play as a team. It's good for scouting. And as groups of guys, and you get into the higher levels, if you have Grandmaster and top 500 clans, they're basically like another minor league level. If you want to call that minor league tier 3 kind of thing, where you can pull from. Because guys can have all the individual skill they want. They can solo queue climb the ladder. And then when they go to trials and tryouts, they just don't work well with a team or something along those lines. And, they're just highly skilled players that can't, do that type of thing to be a pro. It doesn't work for them. But they're really good at the game. But if you get the team scenario, you get groups of guys together that want that, and they're playing hard, and they grind it out, and they're in the top 500, and you can scout these guys and go, hey, even if it's just a support line or a tank line or even individual players, you can say, hey, do you want to come to a trial? Because we watched how you guys play, seen and heard about this team. Yeah, I just think it's going to be great. We're going to dive into the Overwatch League stuff, the actual stuff that we got, but we're going to talk about a couple other fun things that happened there first. We finally got the shots. Well, finally, I guess it's about the same time as last year, I guess. We got the Shock's skin, the Roadhog. I don't even know what to call it other than they call it the Midas. He is just over the top. They went out of their way with this one. That's one I'm personally going to get. I enjoy playing Roadhog on occasion. And I always think he has great skins because you can do so much with the way his look and all that. But he's got the championship wrestling belt. Everything is like gilded gold, bright, fucking just crazy stuff. And then he's got the 2 trophies on his back. It just looks amazing. His hair's on fire. I don't know what that's for, but hey, why not? I think it looks fantastic. And these skins they get better every year. I like the Winston skin. That was great. The weird Shock one last year with Doomfist was weird, but it was really cool. But this one takes the cake out of all 3 of those. This one is just the best that they've done. And you can tell they put a lot of effort and time into this, and it's fantastic. Okay, so we had that. I'm really not going to spend too much time on the Shock versus the World. It was kind of goofy, weird. It was fun to watch, and the banter and all the stuff. The game modes are it was just kind of memey. And even the 6v6 was kind of the same way. It was odd. It was strange. I think they tried a couple of things out secretly in there to see what happens. One of them being the team picks the other team's heroes. I think they're trying that. I think they're going to try that for fun tournaments and things like that, just to see how teams go about playing in situations like that. But let's get to the meat of what we're talking about. This one's going to be a little bit longer than normal, guys. I usually go about 25, half an hour. We might be there. We might make that, but it might go a little bit more just because we have a lot of news about the league itself. Outside of the fun stuff that happened and all that, we finally got all of the things that we've been waiting to see. Well, what happens. We got the schedule, the tournament schedule, how they're running the competitions and all that kind of stuff. And the unfortunate names for most of the tournaments. I don't know. I like dad jokes, but I don't know. Everything is alliterative, and it doesn't have to be. Someone likes alliterative tournament names, and whatever, man. What do you? Some of it's stupid, but okay. I don't know. It has that WWE kind of feel, like SummerSlam or, Bash at the Beach, fucking stupid shit like that. But okay, if it floats your boat, then, it's a minor nitpick from me. I guess it makes it fun for some people, but anyway, let's dive into this. So we got the schedule and the start date, starting a lot later than we thought. I thought it would start, when I was talking a couple episodes ago, either 1st or 7th. It's going to be mid-April. We're starting on the 16th, the week of the 16th. Little unfortunate, little disappointing from my end. Because I love this league. I love this game. I love talking about it, watching it, absorbing it, whatever you want to call it. I love it, so I wanted it to be here as early as possible and go as long as possible. So, it is what it is. It's starting on the 16th. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I'm still going to talk about it from now until then and beyond then. So I'm not going anywhere. We're going to continue with our team previews. We did the first 4 teams on our list. I wanted to jump in and do a BlizzCon episode. Then we're just going to dive right back into it, guys. We're going to start talking about teams and stuff like that. And then we're going to talk about other things in there. And until we get to April 16th. I'm not a naysayer on what's going on. Am I disappointed that it didn't start earlier? I already explained that. I wanted it to start in February. I wanted to start it in fucking October, like 2 days after the season ended last year. That was me. I love this league and I love this game. So I want to see the best competition available all the time. But you know what? If it starts April 16th, hey, it does. That's the way it is. They're moving it into more of an esports style format, which is fine. We talked about that a couple episodes ago. It doesn't have to be, everything doesn't have to be set in stone. This is the 4th year of a league that we're trying to get a grasp on, seeing, what works and what doesn't. And by a happy accident last year, the one thing that did work and made it more interesting was the tournament system, which everybody said, and I was one of the people that was against the tournament system. But after I watched it, I said, hey, you know what? I like this. Let's just get into it and start breaking some of this stuff down. like I said, I'm not going to be negative about it. People can be negative about it all they want. And that's their business. You know, hey, if you feel that way, you feel that way. I don't. In the past, I've had some negative things to say, and including this year, the whole Valiant situation, the situation where Decay was allowed to do whatever he had to do. Just other things that have happened. The way they handled the GOATS meta with, then dropping the 2-2-2 lock and letting it go so far into the season that we've had things. I'm not afraid to say negative stuff about what happens. But to me, this isn't negative. It's disappointing. Yeah, I guess you can call that negative, nitpick, whatever. But you know what? It is what it is. It's going to start. It's going to be great. These teams have ramped up, their rosters for the most part. I think we're going to get really good gameplay this year. I think it's going to be better than it's been in any season that we've had so far. Season 1 was fun because it was new. But if you go back and look at the gameplay and watch from then to now, you watch the teams, the way they play, the cohesion, the strategies. It's a totally different animal. Season 1 was a free-for-all. It really was. Go back and watch say a London Spitfire New York Excelsior game from mid-2018. The two best teams in the league, arguably, stage 1 and 2. Go check that out and tell me if that gameplay and the cohesion and all the stuff that those guys have is better than when you watch Seoul versus the Shock this year. I think, in my estimation, that right now, a team like from last year, I think the Vancouver Titans would have finished in 3rd place in Season 1 if they played the same style that they play now. That's just me. Anyway, enough of that rant. Let's get into what we have going with the season. So, like I said, April 16th we start. Now, they're going to run it in 3-week increments, basically your qualifiers for the tournament. So, each team has to play 4 matches. They get an off week in here. Melee. We'll just break it down how it's going to work. So, weeks 1, 2, and 3, you got April 16th and 18th, April 23rd to 25th, April 29th to May 1st, and then the tournament starts on May 7th. So here's how it goes. What's going to happen is after the 3rd week of the season, teams are going to play 2 games a week and have an off week, which I think is great. I think it's going to be a nice way to do it. This is what happens too. I'm going to throw this in there. When you inject someone like Mr. X in this, was an esports competitor, knows the scene, knows what gamer guys that are on that professional level want to do. He knows the vibe. They have some other guys in there that are like baseball guys and this and that need his voice. Now, they should have done that with Monty and Doa a couple of years ago, but, that's beside the point. But at least they got it going in now. So we got the point. He made points on Plat Chat saying, you'd rather play a couple of games in a weekend and have a week off instead of playing 1 and then off and then 1. It makes sense to me. So after we get into that week 3, now what's going to happen is the play-in tournaments are going to start on the final weekend of that qualifier 3-week staging. So Saturday's the last on any given tournament. This is going to be. So we'll use Melee for an example. So Saturday, May 1st is the last game of the regular season for the Melee tournament for the qualifiers. Then on Sunday, we're going to have the qualifiers in both regions to see who goes to the Melee tournament. And they're going to be doing it like they said they were talking about doing it, having the NA teams go to Hawaii, and they're going to set the ping, I believe they said at 90, and they're going to play the teams from APAC region. So teams from both the regions are going to compete in the tournament. Like we said, they're going to go to Hawaii from NA. So they're going to set the ping. It's going to be top 2 teams from the East and the West, and then they play in a double elimination tournament to determine who wins the May Melee, June Joust, Countdown Cup, Summer Showdown, whatever one it is. And that's fantastic. That was one thing we did not have last year, obviously due to COVID. We did not get culmination of these tournaments with one winner. We had an East and a West. Now we're going to take top 4 teams, top two in each side, to just make it more clear. And then double elimination, much like we ran the finals last year. And then we're going to go all the way, through that bracket on tournament weekend, which is going to be the 7th of May, and determine a flat-out winner of the May Melee, not an East or a West. I am looking forward to that. It's going to be fantastic. I think it's going to give us a better gauge on what teams are good and what teams are not. But here's also a caveat that's going to happen. Something that I was for, I'm on the fence with. We're running hero pools again, but they're running it in 2 of the tournaments. So they're running it during the whole regular season like they did last year, the qualifier weeks. And then hero pools are going to be used in the June Joust and the Countdown Cup. May Melee and Summer Showdown are whatever you guys want to play. I think they're testing it out to see for future with hero pools how that's going to work, if it's necessary or not, or what gameplay is better. You know where I'm going with this. But the one thing they're doing with the hero pools this year, that as opposed to last year, is they're running 1 per cycle. So the April and May qualifiers for the May Melee are going to have 1 hero pool. There's not going to be one every week or every 2 weeks. It's going to be 1 hero pool. Teams can prepare better. It's going to be a lot easier than it was last year. Then 1 week you got Winston as your main tank because the hero pool took out Diva and Reinhardt or whatever. So there's a possibility that you see no Widowmaker for a month, or Lucio, or whatever. It's going to be interesting. I think it's a better way to do it. Teams can get used to it. You can get a flow. You can see, what you need to do instead of going week to week trying to figure out what the fuck is going to happen here. This also plays into teams that have depth, because there's going to be metas where, your best DPS player might not be playing because he doesn't have a good May, and the 2 hit scans got banned. Like, say, Ashe and Tracer got banned. Everyone decides, all right, we're going to revert to some sort of whatever comp. Maybe it's a rush comp or whatever the comp is going to be. But you got to be prepared for these things. So I think after seeing this, I think some teams need to work on their depth. But that's a whole nother story for another day. So, and we're not going to get into the playoffs and all that, but there's, obviously the hero pools are big. They are going to run patch updates and all that stuff, but they're only going to do them on the bye weeks. So between tournaments, between May Melee and the start of the qualifiers for June Joust, they will update to the latest patch. And that's the way they should do it. Dropping a patch in the middle or at the end or whatever is just dumb. It happened last year, and look what that did. It screwed some teams that probably should have been there. But whatever, they had to beat the Shock, and none of them could, so, hey, here we are. And one of the teams that was in the finals benefited from that, and that was Seoul. All in all, I like where the direction where they're going is. Now, there's one other thing that they did that some people are confused on, and some people that are more esports heavy than regular sports heavy don't understand what's happening. So with the broadcast, they're doing a flex game. Now, any of you guys that are NFL fans out there know what a flex spot means for prime time. Basically what it is, in a nutshell, and I believe they're doing 1 East, 1 West. Sunday night football, or football night in America as it's called on NBC, whatever you want to call it. This is what happens. As the season progresses and goes in, they have a schedule of games that are going to be on Sunday night. But there are circumstances where the teams that you thought were going to be good didn't work out. And vice versa. Teams that you thought were going to, before the season started, they thought were going to be bad when they're vying for these games to get in prime time. Mind you, this is between 3 different networks on a $1 billion industry. But this is how it works. So what happens is say week 8, usually it starts around midpoint of the season. They might do it earlier with this, but midpoint of the season, say you have the Chargers and the Broncos. The year before, that looked like a marquee matchup. This year, the Broncos are on a downslide. The Chargers are kind of marginal. But there's other games that could mean more and teams that are up and coming, and all of a sudden, there's a big game where you didn't see it. Say, the Bills and the Browns are that week. What they will do is, now, they have to vie with the other networks in this. Overwatch League doesn't have to do this. In theory, what they do is they go to, say, CBS and say, hey, and the NFL, hey, we want to flex in the Browns-Bills game and in return give them, put back on Sunday afternoon the Chargers and the Broncos. Now, what they do this I believe it's like, they give you like a 2-week lead. They're not just going to all of a sudden change. It means less in the esports realm than it does in the NFL, because, I mean, you're still preparing for the team, but it's travel and all that stuff. These guys aren't traveling anywhere right now, so what it is, it's just different time slots. So you have to prepare accordingly, but they're still going to give them a lead time. So what that does is it takes the better on paper game and puts it into your prime time, quote unquote, slot. The time where you want the most eyes on the game. So now I'm assuming they're going to be doing this at 8 Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, like they do with football. I think it's a great idea. I also, though, I'm going to add something. They need to do what Football Night in America does, in that you need to have a whole show before based around what happened on the week's stuff. Kind of like they used to do with Watchpoint. Like a real Watchpoint. Not just Zoe and whoever's on the desk this year, Reinforce, Costa, just chatting, with everybody. Full-blown recap with insiders, all the stuff, skits, interviews, all that kind of thing. For I believe the game starts at like 8:15 or 8:30 in the NFL. They start at 7:30. So just an hour wrap-up show with one game left. Plus there's a Monday night game, but that's a whole nother story. But I think it will draw people in. You have this marquee matchup that you're talking about. Then you also have all of the week's stuff that's going on before it that you're talking about. And you're just, wrapping up the week with this big game. And I think it's a fantastic idea to run with. I think future-wise, I think this is something that they can run with. I don't understand people's reluctance sometimes. Sometimes you can pick up on things from regular sports and pull in, especially broadcast stuff. They've done it right for a long time. They know what they're doing on some level to draw people in and keep the conversation going, wrapping things up, but with the whole thing being a big game scenario. In the beginning of the year, you're going to have some dogs. You might have some dogs, going on. We had a lot of 3-0s and stuff last year too, so it's hard to say, but I think the way the teams have upped their game as far as their rosters go, I think it's going to be a lot better. Plus, the pandemic isn't as terrifying as it was last year at this time, where teams are trying to make up games. There's, some teams have played once in a month. Some teams have played 7 times in a month. There's none of that going on. So I think there's going to be a lot better matches going on. But I really like this idea of the kind of prime time. We're going to just, they got to advertise it and just build it up as to be, must watch Overwatch League stuff. I think it's a great idea. I think this is one of the injections from stick and ball sports, whatever you want to call it, that they're putting into the Overwatch League that is going to work and work well. I always like that concept of making a marquee matchup where, you gotta watch something. And the easiest way to do it is something like this. Take your best game of the week, put it where all the eyes are going to be, whether it's in the East or in the West, and, just roll with it and make it feel like you have to watch it. There are times when I don't feel like I have to watch Overwatch League. I mean, I watch it because I love it, like I said earlier, but there are times where, you got your last game of the weekend, or week or whatever, you got last year you had like Boston and Vancouver, or you have something that you know is going to be a blowout. You have San Francisco playing the Valiant. You know they're going to kick the crap out of them. I'm using it as an example. Like just basically the shock is miles above everybody. Kind of, you know where I'm going. I'm on a roll, so I'm just going to keep going with it. But you get my point. It gets the best game out in front of you, all that kind of stuff, and it's going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to the season. But to wrap this up at this point with the Overwatch League stuff, you know, we're going to talk more about, you know, some of the things that were said. And, you know, as it progresses throughout the year, too, I'm not afraid to jump in and talk about, you know, what's going on with the game itself and all of that. I'm not reluctant to give you my opinion either. I'm going to tell you what I think. And I like the format of the league this year. I think it's going to be fantastic. And we're going to, you know, keep talking about it, and we're going to keep rolling in this offseason. It's been a really long offseason, admittedly. You know, everybody's kind of like taking a little downturn in how much content they're throwing out there, including myself. And, you know, I've taken a couple weeks off at a time because there's nothing really going on. But you know what? Once we get back rolling, it's going to be fantastic. I think this format and this year, it's going to be the best yet. And it's going to prove that, you know, Overwatch League is here to stay. There's a lot of people that say things like, you know, it's a tier 2 esport. Okay, right now, you might be right, but there's room to grow. I think, and like I said, wrapping this up, I think as far as a competitive game, which is with the heroes and all that stuff aside, which I also enjoy the lore and the heroes and things behind them. All that aside, I think this is a perfect sport if it's run properly, the game, that is, and the league, that it has the most universal appeal as far as all of the things it has. It has shooting, team play, then you have other things like lore and other things in the game that just kind of back all that stuff up and draw people in. I think it's primed to be something bigger than it is right now. You know, it started off really huge because, you know, it was a new game, new things, and, you know, the last couple seasons have been mediocre at best. Let's just be honest. I have fun with it. I love the game and I love watching it. But there were some aspects of the last couple seasons that were kind of meh. But I think this season coming up is going to be fantastic. And I can't wait for it to start. Starting later than we all wanted to. But you know what? If it's for the betterment of the sport, then I'm for it. Much like if it's going to take these guys till next year, mid-next year, whatever, how long it takes to get Overwatch 2 to this complete game that's, you know, beyond expectation for people that play Overwatch and that are gaming fans, then I'm there waiting for that too. I'm okay with it. I have other games I play. I always have, and I always will. Overwatch has been one of my favorite games since it came out, and it'll continue to be. And that includes the sequel. So, you know, and this league is, for me, it's my favorite esport league. I watch some other stuff passively. You know, I'll watch a little bit of League here and there. I'll watch a little bit of some of the professional Valorant stuff isn't bad. But this is my favorite one. So, you know, I'm going to be talking about that. So that's going to do it, guys. Remember, next episode, we're going to start diving back into teams. We're going to hit our second episode of the team previews, where we go over Florida, Guangzhou, Hangzhou, and Houston. That's going to be our next foray into the team previews. So that's going to be fun. We're going to talk about those teams, see where they're at. But for now, thank you very much for joining me. Everybody on YouTube, thank you so much for all your support and all the likes, subscribes, and what have you. Greatly appreciated. This is Misfit. I'm out. Everybody out there, stay safe, have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you on the next one.